Just a blanket trigger warning for police, RCMP, and sex offenders. No detail is given, no graphic images, just the words are used. Thanks. Hey, so I was just talking to my brother Angel about some queer trans history that he learned at like this conference in Edmonton, and he's going to send me all these materials, which is rad. Thank you, Angel. And he mentioned a term that I've never heard before, but just like really hit when it comes to history, in particular queer and trans history, and also in particular history that involves further marginalized communities like BIPOC people, people with disabilities, and like trans people, because the rights that queer people were given were not necessarily rights that were taken care of people who were trans, just because sexuality and gender are different things. And the term that he said was digital closets, and the person that was presenting in Edmonton had said that like a lot of queer and trans history exists kind of in these digital closets, because we learn these facts. I have hundreds of facts. We learn these facts, and then we don't share them with other people unless we're kind of specifically prompted to do so. I host a couple of workshops about history, but not a lot of people have bought them in the past like year or so, so I kind of stepped away from the researching and creating content in regards to history, just based on not being paid for that work, and that just being a really hard thing to keep putting so much energy and time towards when being broke and working side gigs and needing to get paid is a thing. So I think I want to start talking about queer and trans history just on here. I understand that TikTok is supposed to be like short, quick videos that grab your attention so that you don't scroll up and go to the next one, but I can't offer you that service here. I don't know how to condense myself down. It's really exhausting to try and make quick and quirky and engaging content, so I'm just gonna be me. And I'm putting together a queer history trivia game for a client, and there's no real place to like start and end because there's literally hundreds of facts. But I think I want to talk about question number 4, for example, in this quiz, is true or false, so 50% chance of getting it right or wrong. And the question is, and I'm just reading from a script here if you're wondering why I'm looking down. I can't memorize all these things I say, so I have like the access need of needing to have it in front of me in like super large text because I'm partially sighted. So that's what I'm doing when I'm looking down. Imagine that I'm looking at the camera, just kind of presenting to you. And if you bought this trivia quiz, then this is one of the 10 questions that you can answer, and you will now know the answer to, so bonus points. So question number 4 is true or false. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau legalized homosexuality in 1969. Is that fact true or false? So prior to the 1950s and 60s, homosexuality was deemed a crime, and I think I should give a trigger warning here. I'll put that in the show before this, I'll put this before this somewhere, but trigger warnings for criminals, for talking about sex offenders, not anything into detail, police, illegal activities, arrests, RCMP, so again, police, and yeah, I think that's all the trigger warnings for this question. True or false, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau legalized homosexuality in 1969. So prior to the 50s and 60s, homosexuality was deemed a crime, and thus homosexuals were treated like criminals, more specifically sex offenders. I'm using the old language of homosexuals because that's what was used back then, and I want to pay tribute to the historic terms. It's not proper anymore to call someone queer a homosexual. It's outdated term, but I'm using it because I'm referring to history. So gay men were targeted, charged under laws that were vague and allowed police officers tremendous discretionary power. They could decide to arrest someone and make up the charges as they go along. In 1953, it was even illegal for two men to engage in any activity that could potentially lead to sexual relations between them. So examples included two men going to a movie, two men going dancing, or two men going for dinner. If a woman wasn't present, this left room for police to arrest them. In 1954, the next year after that, the law was amended to include women. So this meant that if you engaged in any activity with people only of your own gender, you could be arrested. Homosexuality was also viewed as a threat to all Canadians. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, kept tabs on people they thought were engaging in same-sex activity, maintaining lists of people who frequented well-known gay establishments. In 1967, Pierre Trudeau, who is father to our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, brought forth a bill. In it, did he legalize homosexuality, true or false? I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that fact. And trivia fans might be upset about the answer, but it proves a point. So the answer is neither. Pierre Trudeau is famously known to have quote-unquote legalized homosexuality, and he sort of did, but he also didn't. He partially decriminalized it. So I looked it up. Decriminalization is defined as the act of removing criminal punishments against the act. It doesn't mean the act is legalized. It just means that there are situations where there wouldn't be punishments. The specifics: on June 27th, 1969, Trudeau amended the criminal code to partially decriminalize homosexuality between consenting adults over the age of 21 in private. Any same-sex activity outside of those specific parameters was still illegal. This bill didn't even remove the crime of homosexuality from the criminal code. It added in or put in an amendment in the penalty section that said if you committed this crime under the specific conditions, with it being both consensual, over the age of 21, and in private, you would not be subject to criminal punishments. Arrests of homosexuals in public places such as cars or bathhouses actually increased after this bill's passing, as police were frustrated that they could not arrest homosexuals inside of their own homes. And I have an image here of a black and white picture that shows Prime Minister Trudeau speaking into a microphone at the speaking into a microphone at a podium. And also this brought up the specific parameter of being over the age of 21. So that meant queer people who were under the age of 21, even if it was consensual and in private, could still be subject to punishment under the law. And also there's this idea that the legalization of homosexuality, which is in 90% of the historic information that I saw, it attributed the legalization of homosexuality to Pierre Trudeau. And he never did that. That is completely false. He only partially decriminalized it, and he did so within specific parameters. He is also made famous for saying, and here's a quote, "There's no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation," which is great. That's a great line to have said, but he didn't say it. Trudeau was repeating the words of Martin O'Malley, who was a columnist for the Globe and Mail, who had written an article about a man named George Clippert, who in 1953 was the last person to be arrested, convicted, and jailed for being gay. Trudeau went on to complete his quote by saying, quote, "What's done in private between adults doesn't concern the criminal code. When it becomes public, it's a different matter." So this just shows that sometimes the facts we think we know about history are misleading, and this is one of those moments. I'll come in here and talk about other moments as they come into my mind, but thank you, Angel, for reminding me to pull those bits of information out of the digital closets or these workshops that I'm working in and kind of share it with everyone. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. It's officially Pride Month in the world in June, coming up in a couple weeks. In In Vancouver, we celebrated in August, but I'll tell you why later because we're ending the 10 minutes now. Thanks for watching.